Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries and exit planning advisors. And joining me on this segment is Stephen Cummings. He's the founder of Rizolve Partners. Stephen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Stephen, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically, who are the types of clients that you specialize in helping?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So the type of work that Rizolve does is to help business owners, typically lower mid-market business owners. So that would be smaller companies, not too small, kind of in the range of $3 to $50 million revenue companies who have a need to exit their business over the next 3 to 5 years. Why? Because they're looking to retire or to move on to their next act. So we help business owners in that size range to firstly understand what their objectives are through that process. Secondly, to put together a plan of action. And thirdly, we actually hold the hand of the business owners through that process. It's typically minimum a 24-month process, but could be as long as 3 to 4 years in order to build value, create the right picture of the achievements of their company, and to help them get to the point where they achieve their end objectives, which from a valuation perspective.
These business owners are really great on the day-by-day basis working on growth. But when it comes time to exiting their business, how much thought have they put into that? And do they even recognize the need to plan for their exit?
Well, so there's a couple of issues for business owners. Number one, in that type of size range, firstly, they typically themselves have never done a disposition or a sale of a company. Secondly, many of their team members who have helped them grow their company have not really got experience in doing transactions. So there's a lack of experience and understanding of what's involved, and that's a problem. That's a problem from the point of view of achieving their valuation objectives. But there's a couple of other things that are important. Firstly, they need to understand the dynamics of the market today. The dynamics are that there are many business owners, typically baby boomers, many business owners that are in the same position. They're looking to get liquidity on their biggest investment. So there is high supply and limited demand, which is a problem from a value point of view. And they need to prepare their way to the point where they're ready to do a transaction, and they need specialist advice to do that and resolving that gap. But there is a bigger team that the owner, and then the final point requires. And the final point I would make is the market has a number of imperfections, and there is a lot of silos in the market, and the business owner is causing confusion in the business owner's mind. So having an aligned advisor team is hugely critical to getting to the point where they achieve their objectives. So a lot of things for business owners to consider, for sure.
A lot of them, they don't know what they don't know. So let's unpack it a little bit. What are some of the pitfalls or the dangers that they face if they don't even really think much about their planning before they exit? What are the dangers?
Okay, so let's start with the number one pitfall. The number one pitfall is the business owner needs to know his magic number. What do I mean by that? He needs to understand what value he absolutely needs out of the transaction to fund his lifestyle goals. He needs to understand what he wants to do with money. Is it to buy a house or buy a yacht or buy a cottage or go on a holiday? And he needs to know what the cost of that is. Financial advisors are there in the market to do that thing, but it's critical for the business owner to understand what his number is. The second point is understanding that number then typically creates a gap. It's called a value gap. And what do I mean by the value of his company today versus the value that he needs to exit the company creates a gap. For example, he might need $5 million of cash proceeds after tax in order to fund his lifestyle, but the value of his company may only be $4 million. 5 minus 4 creates a value gap. He needs to understand that. Once he understands the gap, then he needs advice and help in order to close that gap. Why? Because he may get to the end of the transaction negotiation through due diligence, and if the bid is only 4 million and he wants 5 million, he may make the wrong decision. So there's a couple of examples. There are many, but there's a couple of critical examples of the things that the business owner needs to know before he enters into selling his company.
So the last couple of years, we've had this disruption with the pandemic. What have you seen? How has this affected business owners that were working on exiting or even considering exiting today? What's that been like in your field?
Well, we've seen in our client base, we've seen a number of examples. Firstly, we've seen business owners who've been tragically hit by the pandemic and are continuing to struggle, but they are starting to get on their feet, and they're starting to get to the point where they're getting back on the road to normality. The problem with that is it has just added probably a year, if not 2 years, to their time frame of exiting the business because they're very weak. The second type of situation we see with our business owners is they were hugely impacted, but they took the time during the two-year gap period. They took the time to invest in their business, and they have accelerated out of the hole, and they're in a great position. So they recovered really quickly. The third situation we've seen with some of our business owners, they were not affected at all. They have absolutely steamed ahead, and they're in a better position than ever. So it's the first type of situation that is problematic, and the business owner needs to understand that his time frame just elongated, and if he tries to sell without the proper planning extension, he's going to suffer a significant cut in value through the transaction.
Really great insights. Stephen, what inspired you to get into this field and help business owners with their exit? How did you get started?
Well, so my experience. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a chartered accountant with a bit of an unusual way that I approach business. So I've run as a CFO a global business that was very profitable. I've also been a partner of a very large venture capital firm. I've also been a partner in a very, very large private equity firm. So what inspired me to get into this niche is, firstly, I've been there, done it. I've seen a lot of situations with young growing companies, and I can help lower mid-market business owners, as can my other partners. But the inspiration is basically for these business owners in that segment, they have a need to get liquidity on their investment. Typically, it's 80% of their net worth, which is massive. And in order to retire and live the lifestyle that their family deserves, they need to enter into the shark-infested waters of a transaction, they need to enter it in a very planned way, in full knowledge of how they're going to be treated by Mr. Market when they bring the company for sale. We can help them. We have all the background to do that. We have strategists, we have senior finance specialists, we have sales acceleration people, we have marketers on staff, all of whom are very, very senior former executives who can help build value. And that is a significant motivator for me and also my team.
Before I ask you my last question, is there anything that I didn't think to ask you that you feel is important to share with business owners considering exiting now or in the near future?
I think there's 2 or 3 things that are really important to understand. Firstly, your advisor group that you have worked with for many, many years may well be able to help you through a transaction, but you need to seriously consider whether that group of advisors are the right group in order to take you through the final 3 years and through a transaction. For example, a legal counsel may well have served you well for many years, but you need an M&A experienced legal counsel. You need a value growth advisor, someone like a Rizolve partners, or an accountant that's experienced in value growth. You need a tax expert that is able to plan your affairs out for 3 years hence in order to mitigate tax exposures on a transaction. And you also need possibly a broker or an investment banker who is going to help you negotiate the sales transaction. All of those advisors are very specialist. They're in the market every day. They understand value, and they may not be the team that you've had before. So you really need to absolutely consider that. The second really important thing you need to do is, if you are not planning, if you're not good at planning, if you don't see the need for planning, if you've never been through a transaction in your life, please, please, please consider a strategic plan for a 3 to 4 year period in order to not only grow the value of your company, but also to plan the steps of your exit. It's really important. You don't know what you don't know, and there are absolutely experts who you can bring to bear around the table who can help you through both of those things.
For business owners listening who would like to speak with you, how can they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Well, firstly, you can go to our website, which is www.rizolve.ca, Rizolve.ca. So that's the first place. Secondly, you can send me an email, scummings@rizolve.ca. Or finally, you can get on the phone, and my cell number is 416-561-8557. Failing that, I'm sure if you did a search, you can search me on the internet. You can commonly find me on LinkedIn and reach out through that process and facility as well.
Stephen, this has been terrific. I really appreciate your insights, and I appreciate you sharing with my audience today. I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
That was Stephen Cummings. He's the founder of Rizolve Partners. And this segment's brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses and practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.